It was supposed to be a fresh start. That morning, the apartment was a mess of cardboard boxes and half-taped lids. Coffee mugs wrapped in newspaper and furniture legs sticking out at weird angles. The kind of mess that meant progress, forward motion. I remember sitting up in bed and feeling like this was supposed to be one of those turning points. A new home, a bigger space, maybe a backyard someday. Felt like we were building something. But even before I saw the marks, something was off. The light felt colder than it should have. That heavy silence in the morning, it didn't feel like calm. Felt like something was waiting. I looked over at Maya, still asleep beside me, curled up with the blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. Her face was peaceful. Eyes closed, lashes resting just above her cheekbones. She looked like someone I had loved for years. And for a moment, I almost let myself believe everything was okay. That the tension from the past few weeks, the dodged questions, the silences, the weirdly timed errands, was just stress from the move. I was halfway out of bed when I saw it. 3 small, reddish marks just beneath her jawline. Not scratches. Not bruises. Not random. They were deliberate, circular, faint, but visible enough under the soft morning light. My brain immediately reached for explanations I didn't believe. Maybe she bumped into something. Maybe it was a rash. Maybe mosquito bites. But they weren't. They looked exactly like kisses. The kind you leave when you're too caught up to care if it leaves a mark. I froze, staring at them for longer than I should have. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. I wanted my brain to be wrong, to misinterpret the shape, the color, the pattern. But I couldn't unsee it. And as I stood there in that in-between moment, not quite awake, not fully in denial, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Ocean View 17. That was the contact name. The message preview said, "Can't wait to see you again." The name meant nothing to me. The message meant everything. It was like my chest cracked open a little bit right then. That instant, quiet panic. Not loud or explosive, but sickening in a way that makes your mouth go dry. I didn't even think. I reached toward the phone, and that's when her hand moved fast, almost instinctively. She didn't even fully open her eyes, just reached out, snatched the phone, and flipped its screen down in one motion. Her body stayed mostly still, but her voice came out alert. Too alert. "You're overreacting," she said flatly, like I had already accused her of something. I hadn't said a word. She was suddenly very awake. Her eyes met mine, expression unreadable, but not surprised. Not caught off guard. Just prepared. I pointed, without speaking, toward the marks on her neck. She pulled the comforter up, covering her throat like it was nothing. "It's from a scarf," she said. "Wool or something. I think I'm allergic." I blinked. "A scarf?" "Yeah. I wore it yesterday when I ran errands. It's itchy." "Don't look at me like that," I Googled it. Skin reactions can show up in weird patterns. I didn't say anything. She stared back like that was supposed to be enough. Then calmly, too calmly, she added, "And the phone? That was Ellie. She made a group chat for some hotel options. For her birthday weekend." The knot in my chest pulled tighter. "That's who Ocean View 17 is?" I asked. "Yeah. She saved it under the name of the resort she was looking at. She's weird like that." Maya gave a little shrug, like I was the one being strange for asking. I had never heard her mention a group chat, or Ellie's birthday weekend, or Ocean View anything. And even if I had, who saves a friend's name under a hotel alias? It didn't add up. None of it added up. But the worst part wasn't the lie. It was how comfortable she was telling it. I didn't push. Not then. Not because I believed her, I didn't, but because the way she said it scared me more than the message itself. It wasn't defensive. It was smooth, rehearsed. She didn't even flinch. "You seriously think I'd cheat on you the day we're moving in together?" she asked. Her tone was light, like she was almost amused, like she was performing concern for my benefit. "I don't know what to think," I said quietly. That was the truth. In that moment, I didn't know what was worse. That she might be lying to my face, or that I might still be hoping she wasn't. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, stretched like this was just another ordinary morning. And I watched her. Watched the way she moved without hesitation, how she went straight for her slippers, how she didn't check the message again. Like nothing had happened. Like I was just some overthinking boyfriend who needed to calm down. But I wasn't overthinking. Not this time. I'd seen the signs before this, I just hadn't connected them. The nights she'd been too tired to talk. The sudden solo jogging habit that came out of nowhere. The way her phone was always on silent now, and always flipped screen down just like that morning. She used to be open. She used to laugh when I leaned over her shoulder to read a text or asked who she was talking to. Now she shifted away without realizing it. And there were the little digs. The ones I didn't catch until later. "You're getting kind of predictable," she said last week when I surprised her with dinner. I had brushed it off at the time. But now I remembered every word. She walked out of the bedroom while I stayed seated at the edge of the bed, staring at the dent her head left on the pillow. That's how still she had been. That's how peaceful she looked while I wondered whether everything I believed about her, about us, was a lie. I looked at the phone again, still screen down, and I hated how much I still wanted to believe her. It didn't happen all at once. That's what gets me now, how gradual it was. How every small thing that once felt forgettable suddenly rearranged itself in my mind, fitting together like shards of glass to form a picture I didn't want to see. A timeline in reverse. Not of a relationship growing stronger, but one quietly falling apart. After that morning, after the marks, the message, and the scarf story, something in me shifted. Not a loud snap, but a quiet dislocation. I started seeing things I'd ignored before, noticing things I had trained myself to accept, like how her phone never rang around me anymore. Just texts, silent buzzes, and always screen down. Or the sudden interest in running. Maya used to hate the cold. She'd joke that her bones were designed for sunshine, and that anything under 60 degrees should be illegal. But lately, she'd started jogging early in the mornings, before sunrise, when it was still biting out. I'd hear the front door click shut at 6:05, followed by the shuffle of her shoes on the tile, and sometimes I'd catch the faint sound of her voice outside. Talking, laughing. She said she needed the air. That running helped her clear her head. I used to believe that. I wanted to. Then there was the gym bag she started carrying. It had new clothes in it, expensive ones. Things I didn't recognize. I found a receipt once crumpled in her coat pocket. $118 at a lingerie boutique in a part of town we'd never visited together. When I asked about it, she barely looked up from her phone. "It was for myself," she said. "Is that a crime?" That was her tone lately, sharp, quick, like a warning. She never used to be like that. Her warmth had been quiet but steady. She used to hum while brushing her teeth. She used to lean into my side when we watched movies. Lately, she sat at the far end of the couch, texting with one hand, sipping wine with the other. And the ring. I noticed it first on a Thursday morning. We had just come back from signing the lease on the new place. It was supposed to be exciting. Clean start. She kissed me on the cheek when we walked in the door. Not the lips, the cheek. And then disappeared into the bedroom to take a call. An hour later, she came back out dressed for her run. I saw her hands as she tied her hair back. The wedding ring gone. "Did you take your ring off?" I asked. She glanced at her hand like she had forgotten it wasn't there. "Oh, yeah. It gets in the way when I run." I nodded slowly. "Since when?" She didn't answer. Later that night, I asked if she wanted to help pack the kitchen. She said she had work to finish and locked herself in the bedroom with her laptop. When I passed by, I could hear music playing from her phone, but no typing. Just silence and the occasional short laugh. Like she was on a call or watching something I wasn't invited into. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, long enough for her to notice the shadow under the door. That's when the music stopped. When I asked who she was talking to, she said it was Ellie again. Always Ellie. The same Ellie who, apparently, booked spa trips under code names. The same Ellie I hadn't heard her mention in months until that morning. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Because by then, I had already stopped trusting her answers. And then there was the breakfast conversation. A week before the marks. A week before the message. We were sitting at the counter eating toast and drinking bad coffee from paper cups because most of our kitchenware was already packed. I had made a stupid joke about how grown-up we were, planning moving logistics and arguing about light fixtures. She had smiled. Not a real one, just the kind that stretched too fast, and said, "Some men just don't grow up." I remember it now because of how casually she said it. Like it wasn't meant to sting. Like she was speaking out loud to someone who wasn't me. I laughed it off at the time. I said something dumb in return, probably self-deprecating, trying to keep the mood light. But now I see it for what it was. It wasn't a joke. It was an exit wound. The phrase kept looping in my head for days afterward. Some men just don't grow up. The more I thought about it, the more it sounded like something she'd heard or repeated somewhere else. Not original. Not spontaneous. It sounded like something she had practiced. And it wasn't just what she said. It was how she looked when she said it. Detached. Almost like she wasn't even talking to me. That's how she'd been lately. Present but not there. Her body was in the room, but her attention was miles away. Buried in her phone, or hidden behind short replies, or sitting in the passenger seat with a playlist I didn't recognize anymore. Music was another change. She used to play indie stuff. Chill, atmospheric. Now it was upbeat, curated, oddly romantic. I once walked in on her dancing alone in the living room. She stopped the moment I entered, like I'd interrupted something private. "Just burning off stress," she said. I nodded, but the look in her eyes wasn't stressed. It was happy, like she was keeping something secret, and the secret was beautiful. At night, she started falling asleep earlier. Phone in hand, always on silent, always screen down. I tested it once. Asked her if she could set an alarm for the morning since my phone was updating. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was long enough. Then she said, "Just use the microwave. I don't want to mess with my sleep settings." Sleep settings, right? I went along with it. I didn't say anything. Not because I believed her, because I didn't want to be the guy who checks his wife's phone. I didn't want to turn into that, but I was already becoming him. Because it wasn't just the scarf or the gym bag or the ring. It was the energy, the way she carried herself, like someone already halfway out the door, just waiting for the right time to leave. She smiled less, laughed less, touched me less, but she took more pictures of herself. She stayed longer in front of the mirror. Her perfume was different. Her makeup changed. She went from barefaced Sundays to fully done-up coffee runs. There were tags on her clothes I'd never seen before, brands I didn't recognize. And when I complimented a new dress, she said, "Oh, this old thing?" Like it had been there all along. But I knew better. The pieces had been scattered for months, but that morning they clicked into place. The scarf was a lie. Ocean View wasn't Ellie. The ring hadn't been forgotten, it was a choice. And I wasn't imagining any of it. I was just finally catching up. The lie unraveled on a Wednesday evening. Not with a confession or a fight, but with a careless oversight, a tab left open on the tablet we shared. That was all it took. I wasn't even trying to snoop. I came home from work early, dropped my keys, and saw the screen still glowing on the kitchen counter. Maya had been on it, probably checking something while finishing her tea. She must have forgotten to close the browser or log out. It was innocent, mundane. Until I saw the subject line. Reservation confirmed. Mountain Glen Resort. At first, I thought maybe it was spam. One of those generic promotions. I was ready to swipe it away. But then the details caught my eye. Private cabin. Couples massage. Dinner for two. Fire pit under the stars. The dates? This weekend. The name on the booking? Not hers. Just a note at the bottom. Soon everything will be different. I read it twice, 3 times, trying to make it not say what it said. Mountain Glen. A few months ago, we passed it on a drive out of town. She had mentioned how cozy it looked. Like something from a movie, she'd said. Can you imagine a weekend there? No phones, no noise, just snow and quiet. And now she had booked it. For 2. But I wasn't invited. When I looked at the calendar we shared, the one pinned to the fridge, she'd written, Iowa, Aunt Kathy in bold black marker across those exact dates. A weekend trip, she'd said. Family visit. Her aunt wasn't doing well again. But her aunt had been dead for 8 years. I'd been at the funeral. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't yell or demand answers. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed and went black. Then I started packing. Her things, not mine. I didn't throw anything, didn't break anything. I moved slowly, deliberately. The way you move when you're admitting something to yourself you've been trying not to know. I took her coats from the front closet. Her boots from the entryway. Her dresses from the left side of the wardrobe. The new ones with unfamiliar tags and invisible price points. The workout gear she never sweated in. The nightgown I hadn't seen her wear at home. I folded it all. Neatly. Put it in boxes. Labeled them. Then I changed the code on the front door. The bed felt foreign that night. Like it had already been lived in by someone else. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long she'd been planning it. How many runs were actually meetups. How many nights I fell asleep thinking she was beside me, while her mind, or worse, was miles away. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen counter, looking at the printed confirmation from the tablet. Check-in Friday, 3 p.m. Check-out Sunday, 11 a.m. I looked at the email address, some throwaway Gmail, nothing I recognized. But the message field haunted me. Soon everything will be different. D. I kept reading that line over and over. Soon everything will be different. Not fun. Not relaxing. Different. It wasn't a weekend escape. It was an erasure. She wasn't planning to return to our life. She was planning to start a new one. With D. I didn't sleep much after that. Didn't eat. I canceled the movers without telling her. Cleared her stuff from the bedroom, and made space where her things used to be. I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to confront whoever D was. I just wanted her gone. Because at that point, she already was. When Friday came, she kissed me on the cheek. Again, not the lips, and said, "I'll call when I land." "Safe travels," I replied. I watched her leave, a weekender bag slung over her shoulder. No suitcase, no family photos, just the bare essentials for a weekend where she wouldn't have to pretend. When the door shut, I locked it behind her and slid the boxes into the garage. Later that evening, I sat in the living room with the lights off. The house was quiet. Her scent still hung faintly in the cushions. A candle she always used, lavender and vanilla, burned low on the mantel. I didn't touch the tablet. Didn't need to. I already knew where she was. That night it snowed lightly. Thin, quiet flakes that melted on contact. I watched them fall from the front window, trying to feel something. Anger, relief, sadness. But I just felt still. At one point my phone buzzed. It was her. "Made it. Aunt says hi. Miss you." I didn't reply, because now I knew the real name for her weekend retreat. It wasn't Iowa. It was goodbye. She came back Sunday night. I heard her car pull into the driveway just after 9 p.m. The sound was too familiar. The crunch of gravel under the tires, the metallic creak of the driver's door, her boots tapping briskly up the front walk. For a second, my body reacted like it always had, like she was coming home to me, like everything would resume as usual. But nothing about this was usual anymore. The door handle jiggled. Then again. A pause. I imagined her standing there in the cold, trying to remember the code she had used for years. The same one we picked together the day we moved in, a blend of our birthdays. Hers first, then mine. Ironic now. She tried it twice, then knocked. Soft at first, then harder. I didn't move. Not right away. I waited until she knocked again, more insistent this time. When I opened the door, I kept the chain latched. Just a few inches between us. She stepped back in surprise, blinking at the narrow opening. "Why's it locked?" she asked, almost laughing. "You changed the code?" I looked at her without answering. She was wearing that beige wool coat I never liked. The one that made her look polished but distant, like she was heading to a boardroom instead of coming home. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, lips slightly chapped. She looked normal, as if the weekend hadn't happened, as if nothing had changed. I didn't speak for a moment. I just let the silence stretch. "Maya," I said finally, "don't bother trying to come in." Her smile faltered. "What?" "I packed your things. They're in the garage. All of them." Her brows furrowed, like she couldn't process the words. "What are you talking about?" I leaned slightly toward the crack in the door. "I know." A pause. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes flicked just briefly, as if calculating how much I really knew. "I know about Mountain Glen," I said. "About the booking. About the message." Still nothing. No gasps, no denial. Just a subtle exhale, like she'd been holding her breath for days. "Let me explain," she said. "I'm not interested in an explanation." "Seriously?" she said, her voice tightening. "You're going to do this now? Through a door?" I nodded once. "Yes." Her tone shifted, from surprise to defiance. "It wasn't what you think." I almost laughed at how fast the script came out, like she'd practiced that line more than once. Maybe even said it before to someone else. "Really?" I said. "Because it looked like a romantic weekend for two. Cabin, massages, dinner under the stars. All while I thought you were visiting a woman who's been dead for 8 years. That landed." Her eyes flinched. "I didn't plan it that way," she said, her voice low. "I needed space." "Did Dee help with that?" She blinked. "Excuse me?" "The note. In the message field. Soon everything will be different. Dee. Want to tell me who that is?" Silence. I waited. She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "You've always twisted things. You build these stories in your head and then punish me for them." I stayed quiet, because I didn't need to argue. The truth was heavy enough to speak for itself. She tried again, softer this time, almost pleading. "It wasn't like that. I saw the booking, Maya. I saw the dates. I saw the message. And you lied. You made up a trip to see a dead relative." Her shoulders sank slightly. The energy shifted. Her hands were in her pockets now, head tilted slightly, like she was trying to look calm, understanding, even. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said. "That doesn't make it right. I didn't know how to say it without hurting you. You went anyway. I didn't mean for it to get this far." I tilted my head. "You mean you didn't mean to get caught?" That stopped her. I heard her breathe in, then out. "You really packed all my stuff?" she asked. I nodded. "It's all in the garage. Everything you'd take with you if you were starting over." "And you're really not going to let me in?" I stepped back just slightly. Not enough to close the door. Just enough to look her fully in the face. "No, Maya. I'm not." She looked around like the night might give her an answer, as if one of the neighbors might come out and change the script. But the street was empty, and the cold had settled in. "You're not even going to talk to me?" "This is the talk," I said. "You made a choice. Now you're living in the part after." She stared at me for a few seconds longer, eyes searching for a crack in my expression, a weakness, a way back in. But there wasn't one. And the worst part? She didn't even cry. She didn't pound on the door or demand a second chance. She didn't shout that I was wrong, that I misunderstood, that it was all some big mistake. She just gave me a long look, then took a step back. And that was it. She turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared around the side of the house toward the garage. I closed the door and slid the deadbolt into place. No yelling, no screaming, no dramatic monologues. Just a quiet transaction of consequences. The kind that don't need an audience to be real. She showed up the next afternoon. Not Maya. Someone else. Her name was Lauren. One of Maya's old friends. Or maybe former friends is more accurate. They drifted over the past year, supposedly over some disagreement about a bridesmaid dress and a canceled weekend trip. I remember Maya calling her too intense. But Lauren was always kind to me. Polite. Thoughtful. We hadn't spoken in months. So when I saw her standing at the door, hands clasped awkwardly in front of her and eyes scanning the porch like she wasn't sure if she should even be there, I knew this wasn't a social visit. She looked nervous. like someone who had thought about turning the car around twice before knocking. "Hey," she said. "Do you have a minute?" I nodded slowly and stepped outside. I didn't invite her in. Not because I didn't trust her, but because the walls inside still smelled like Maya's perfume, and I didn't want to give that scent any more time in my lungs than necessary. Lauren looked like she had rehearsed whatever she came to say. But even so, her words came out tentative. "Careful. I've been debating whether or not to reach out," she started. I didn't know if it was my place. She glanced past me, toward the living room window, then back at me. "Is she here?" "No," I said. That seemed to loosen her up just slightly. "She told people you were controlling," she said. "That's what she's been saying for a while." I didn't react, just waited. Lauren fidgeted with the strap of her purse. "I don't know if it's true. I never saw that in you, but I started hearing things. From mutual friends. And I guess I felt complicit for not saying anything." I nodded once. I hadn't expected anyone to say anything, let alone someone like Lauren. But there she was, standing on my porch with the weight of something bigger than gossip. "She said she felt stuck," she continued, "like you were holding her back, that she couldn't grow with you in the picture." She stopped, as if waiting for me to react. I didn't. Then she started getting close with someone on her creative team. Someone named Darren. My jaw didn't move, but something inside me stiffened. D. The same D who signed that retreat confirmation. Lauren noticed. "Yeah," she said. "That one." She looked down at her hands, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded printout. She used to screensh *T messages. For proof or receipts or whatever. I don't know if she meant for me to see these, but I did. She handed me the paper, almost like it burned her fingers to hold on to it. I took it, unfolded it. It wasn't long, just a few lines of text, clipped from a longer thread. But what was there was more than enough. "Darren. He doesn't know anything?" "Maya, not yet. He won't notice until we're already in the new place. It'll be our version of a beginning." I stared at it for a long time. The words were so casual, so unbothered, like I was a prop being quietly wheeled off stage so they could start the next act without me. Lauren broke the silence. "She talked like you were just a phase," she said softly. "Like you were something she needed to outgrow." I didn't agree with it, but I didn't know how to say that. Her voice cracked slightly. "And I should have. I'm sorry." I looked at her, not with anger, but with something colder. Something that came from realizing how far gone Maya had been, long before I saw the marks or the message. "It's not your fault," I said. "She made her choices." Lauren nodded. Her eyes were glassy, but she blinked the tears away before they could fall. "She told people you were paranoid," she said after a moment, "that you had trust issues, that you were jealous of her success." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I could hear the words in Maya's voice. It wasn't just betrayal. It was revision. She hadn't just cheated. She had rewritten the story so I'd be the villain, the obstacle, the one dragging her down while she reached for more. Lauren looked like she was waiting for permission to leave, like the weight of the truth had finally been lifted from her shoulders, and now she didn't know what to do with her hands. "Thank you," I said, folding the printout. She gave a small, broken smile. "I wish I'd come sooner." "You came when it mattered." She started walking back toward her car, then stopped, turned slightly. "She's going to spin this," she said. "Make herself the victim. Just be ready for that." I already am, and I was, because Maya didn't operate in truth. She operated in control, image, narrative. And the moment she realized the version of herself she curated had collapsed, that's when I knew the real storm would come. Lauren drove off. I watched her car disappear down the street, then went back inside. The house felt quieter than before. Not hollow, just still. I set the paper on the counter and poured a glass of water. My hands were steady. My thoughts were clear. That was our whole life together, condensed into a screensh *T and a goodbye. Not even a messy one. Not even dramatic. Just an ending I hadn't been given the courtesy of reading in advance. And all I could think was, so this is how it really ends. Not with an argument. Not with closure. Just a stranger holding proof that the person you loved stopped loving you long ago, and never had the decency to say so. I got the message at 8:03 a.m. It was short. No greeting. No emotion. Plans changed. My son went with his real father. That was it. Not our son. Not I'm sorry. Just a single sentence that knocked the air out of me harder than any confession ever could. By noon, I came home to find the house gutted. The furniture, the curtains, the framed photos, all gone. Not stolen. Taken. Deliberately. She didn't leave alone. And it wasn't with a girlfriend or a moving company. She left with him. She didn't even try to hide it. Didn't soften the blow. Just sent a text and walked out of the life we built like it was a temporary lease. That's when it became clear. I hadn't been her partner for a long time. I'd been the placeholder. The text started the next day. Blame at first. Then apology. Then threats. A full cycle of manipulation crammed into a few days. I didn't reply. On day 3, an email arrived from the same address used for the spa retreat. Shame you ruined everything. I didn't read the rest. The only thing left in the house was a sticky note she once put on the bathroom mirror. Smile. I love you. I didn't throw it away. I framed it. Not for her, but for me. To remember exactly what a lie looks like when it's dressed like love. Some endings don't need closure. Just quiet. And I gave her silence, the one thing she never learned to sit with.